welcome back to Little Miss Drop Stitch. Bit of a change of scenery again today. I'm going to be hand dyeing some clothes, so none of this video is sponsored. I bought them very cheaply, some cases second hand, in some cases new with tags on Vinted. So white clothes like this. I've got a nice jersey kind of summer dress and I'm going to be completely transforming it. I am using some Dylon hand dye. So this video today will teach you how to hand dye. I'll also be doing videos on machine dyeing and ombre dip dyeing as well. But I'm going for this fabulous tropical green. A couple of things to bear in mind before we get started is have a look how much fabric the dye will dye essentially. So it will say a kind of grammage. I think, yeah, this is about, is it 500 grams of clothes? No, good job, I read it. 250 grams of clothing. So if you use your clothing's heavier, which is perfectly fine, it will come out lighter. So as long as you're aware of that. I've had both happy accidents with this where I've absolutely loved the colour, and also others where I'm just like, no, and I'm going to over dye it. So bear that in mind. The next thing to bear in mind is the composition of your fabric. So I've had a look at the label. This is 100% cotton and my fabric dye is for dyeing natural fibres. So by that we mean, you know, wool, cotton, viscose, linen, especially now it's summer, you're getting a lot of those. It also says wood, but you know, you do you. If it's synthetic, so polyester, what else? Nylon, those sorts of things, then you'd need to look at something that dyes synthetic fibres. If it's a mix, then I'd say 35% and under polyester mix with, let's say, cotton, then you can go ahead and use the natural dye. It just might come out a little bit lighter. Over 35%, use something that's for synthetics. As we know by now on this channel, first thing is always first. The first step is to wet your garment. Why are we doing that? Well, it helps the dye to stick better, and this is for regardless of what you're doing, whether that's machine dyeing or hand dyeing. So you need to wet it through. It needs to be damp. We don't want it sopping wet, just damp. So I'm going to wet it and then give it a little wring out. Just cold water will do. Put that to the side for now. It's not going to dry out anytime soon with this weather. I'll now show you what kind of makeshift tools I'm using. For the dye bath, you can use the sink, but I'm not going to because I think that one will have kittens. So I am actually using a foot spy bowl. I found this to be the perfect size for dyeing kind of 250 to potentially 400 grams of clothing, and it holds just the right amount of water. So that's perfect. I'm just going to put this in the sink freeze. I've done it on the worktop as well previously. Bit of ingenuity if I say so myself, and because I'm using dye for natural fibres, it's not actually going to dye the foot spare either, so I can use it later. I've just got kind of a strawberry punnet pot. You could use a big yoghurt pot. My mum gets like a kilogram of yoghurt at a time, even if I can get my words out. Basically, it's something you're not using for food, so feel free to use a measuring jug. But I'm not going to, just even though it won't stain, I'll know that it's had that on. I don't want to be ingesting it when I'm making my gravy or whatever. So just something that's plastic, not got holes in. That's what we're going to mix the dye in a moment. You'll see what I mean. And then something to stir with. So I've just got a giant ruler that I don't really use. However, it's totally wipe clean because it's synthetic and we're using a natural dye. Sorry, natural fibre dye. And that's what I'm using. Now what I want to do is make the dye bath. I'd always suggest reading the instructions twice on the packet and going off them. However, this is what I'm doing for the Dylon, and a lot of these steps will be echoed in other brands of dyes as well. Hopefully you can hear me over the tap. The first step it wants is 6 litres of warm water into the dye, bowl, bath, whatever. Make sure it is warm water, okay? Now this next step might seem a little bit peculiar, but I want to put 250 grams of salt into the dye bath. And what this does is it fixes the dye, helps to make it colour fast. So it fixes the dye to your fabric, your garment, and it helps it to be colour fast. Do have a check for what material you're using. Some will require white vinegar. There's a few different ways of doing it as well. And some, I know the machine wash ones with Dylon, they have the salt in it. So do just double check your packet if you need to add salts, but that's why we're doing it. If I say so myself, I have become a little bit of a genius, and I thought about using this silicone kind of pastry brush. You could use the wooden one. So because I'm using a football, and this is quite unique to me, but you might be using one, there's all the little bobbly bits at the bottom and the salt stays in there. So I'm just gonna wiggle it round until it dissolves and gets out of those crevices. You might also be using like kind of one of those crystal boxes that are see-through and quite sturdy that has ridges in, so you might need to do this as well just to make sure it's all dissolved and not sitting in any crevices. I'm now going to make up the dye. You have to melt it, dissolve it even, in warm water. Here it says 500 millilitres to start with before we add it to our dye bath. I should have said before, kitchen roll essential in this project. This is what the dye looks like in the packet. So warm water into our little dye bath. Remember, it needs to be warm because that will help it dissolve. Put this in. In fact, I'll come and show you. If it turns a different colour to what you was expecting, don't worry. For example, I did a blue and it looked purple at this stage, but don't worry because it will be diluted quite a bit. So I'm just going to keep stirring it round. Remember to use things that you're not then using for food. So I'm not going to use the wooden spoon unless it's specifically for this. And you want to keep stirring until it stops sounding gritty at the bottom. Can you hear that? It sounds quite gritty, so it's not dissolved. So I'm going to keep stirring this until it's nicely dissolved. Now's the fun bit. We can add the dye into the water to make the dye bath. I'm using one hand, but you're not going to be filming whilst doing this, so it's going to be a lot sturdier with two hands. Ooh. Okay, beautiful inky green, but remember it does say it's going to be tropical green. So give that all a mix. And then we're ready for the exciting part. We can put our garment in. Garment's still nice and damp, and nothing fancy, just plop it in. Then I'm going to use my little stir. Oh, looks like the Wicked Witch of the West in here. Let me show you. Very Wicked Witch of the West. And now what I need to do is keep stirring it, kind of dipping it in and out for 15 minutes in total, but that's not the end of the process, so you're going to have to keep watching, I'm afraid. So yeah, keep giving it a stir. I'm going to get my hands in at some point and, you know, just turn it over, because basically we don't want it sitting. We have to stir for 15 minutes because any kind of creases or folds, we don't want those to stay white and not be penetrated by the dye. It might not seem the colour you want at the moment. That's absolutely fine. It goes darker over time, so trust the process. I'm going to keep giving it a stir and agitating it for 15 minutes. Time's up, and here's the creature from, well, the Green Lagoon, the tropical Green Lagoon even. Now what we want to do is let it have a bit of a snooze, a bit of a rest. So this process is going to take 45 minutes, this next bit, and you want to stir kind of infrequently. So I usually try and stir about 3 or 4 times within those 45 minutes, and the 4th time is kind of when I come to it at the end of those 45 minutes. So usually kind of every ad break I'll come up, give it a jiggery poke, if I like to say that, give it your bit of a swirl around, just like that. That will be absolutely fine, and then you can go away and come back 10 or 15 minutes later and do the same until 45 minutes are up, and then I'll show you what to do next. If you're anything like me, you'll have had lots of cups of tea and pieces of cake whilst waiting to stir, but we've now done, so I'm going to empty the dye bath, and there is a couple of other steps before we're done as well. What you want to do now, and oh, can we just, isn't this colour fabulous? Well, this isn't actually the colour it's going to be, because wet fabric looks darker than dry fabric, so this isn't the grand reveal just yet. What we need to do is rinse it with cold, so I'm just going to use the tap, and then rinse it again with warm. Now you can use the tap, but I feel it gets more off and it spins it so it's drier as well. So just do it on a 15-minute cycle in the washing machine. So cold first. And off camera I will just carry on as well until it's mostly stopped running off green, and then I'm going to pop it in the washing machine for 15 minutes, so that's the warm water, and it also means it'll spin a lot of it off, and then it's a nice day. Well, for drying it is, so I'll peg it out. On the instructions it says don't peg it out, well, don't let it dry in direct sunlight, so no sunny days, and or direct heat, so I took that to mean a radiator as well. But today's really overcast and a bit chilly and breezy, so today's the perfect drying day. Just thought I'd pop on and show you the finished colour. It's still actually a little bit damp. That's because it's July in Great Britain and it's pouring down, so we're over 24 hours later and it's still a bit damp, but I think this is the colour it's going to go. So it's actually this light tropical green, and that's part of the fun, seeing what colour it's going to come out. I really hope you enjoyed this video and learned something. Please do feel free to send us either via the website or on social media the clothes that you've dyed, because I want to try and help us be more sustainable and crucially save money as well. Do give us a like, thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff so we can make more videos. Thank you and take good care.